Well, welcome to the Hope Community Church vlog. This is episode, I don't know, number 42 or 43 or something. And I'm joined today by my friend Izzie. Izzie, say hi, introduce yourself. Who are you? All that kind of stuff.
Hello, I'm Izzie. I'm a friend of Matt's for what, like 6 or 7 years now.
Too long.
And too long, far too long. So I'm from Leicester originally. I grew up here, lived here for most of my life. And last year I moved down to Poole. So me and Matt have essentially just swapped places in the world. And I'm working for a church down there. I'm doing a theology degree at the moment in a college down there. That's who I am.
So if you're doing a theology degree, you're pretty into this whole Christianity thing. That must have meant that you come from a Christian family and you've just believed this your whole life, right?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not from a Christian family. I think my family are probably atheists. That's probably what they'd label themselves. Definitely what I labelled myself. But yeah, no faith of any sort really in our house, which was fine by me as I was growing up. And then I was about 16 and my friends invited me to a youth club around the corner. And I just thought, why not? There's probably going to be some boys there, so I'll go to that. And yeah, so I realised it was a Christian youth group and started going along every week. And I kind of thought, you know, the games are fun and the people are fun, and then there's a bit of a God bit, and that's fine. I'll just sit through that so I can get to the end. And I just gradually started taking it in, started asking some questions and realising that maybe the truth that I'd grown up with wasn't the truth. And actually it was okay to ask questions, it was okay to explore. And yeah, very, very quickly decided I did believe in God, and I did believe that Jesus had died for me, and became a Christian really quickly. And fast forward 5 years and Matt had convinced me to go to Bible college, so that's where I went.
So just to clarify, you didn't know it was a Christian youth club when you first went?
I think I probably should have known because it was in a church, but no, at first it was just a thing that my friends went to. And you pretty much, as soon as you get there, you realise it is, because you're in a church and they talk about God. But yes, I think at first my brain was like, oh, new friends, new boys, new like games to play. Like that was my tunnel vision.
Yeah, and when it's not part of your experience or your worldview or stuff like that, you don't necessarily expect to be talking about God and stuff. But what I'm finding interesting as I'm chatting to more people about their stories is there were these assumptions that Christianity wasn't relevant, or Jesus didn't exist. But when people look into it for themselves, actually it seems a whole lot more relevant than maybe they presumed before that.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was very academically minded and quite I needed the hard evidence, and I was an atheist because I'd researched it and all of that kind of stuff. And so when I came into it, I was like, well, this is just all rubbish. Like, I don't believe any of it, and I'm not going to. And actually, I think it was the emotional side of it that really got me at first. And for a really long time, I still had those big questions of like, how does God possibly exist outside of time? And how did Jesus die on the cross and rise again? And all of these scientific things that didn't make any sense. But actually the fact that Jesus loved me, the fact that he wanted anything to do with me, and that if God did create the world, he wanted something to do with me, and that was incredible. That's what really grasped me at first. And I think it was that kind of like loneliness and that teenage need for something more, and for someone to love you and for someone to accept you. That was the big draw, which from the outside, Christianity isn't about that sometimes. It's all about the facts and whether you can prove them. And I think I was quite shocked that wasn't my first experience.
And so if people are listening to this and maybe haven't looked into Christianity or have written Christianity off without looking into it, what would you want to say to them?
I think get to know some Christians. I think that was probably the biggest thing that really flipped it for me, because you can do all the research in the world. You can read all the books, you can watch all the talks, and you don't necessarily get a personal sense of who Jesus is. And I think you can. I don't at all think that God can't meet you where you are. But I just think meeting Christians for me was a realization that these people were normal and they also believed in God. And that was amazing. So I think, yeah, like meet some Christians, and hopefully there are some around where you are, but just get to know them and ask about their personal walk, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies, but it's also not all just kind of head in the clouds, I'm going to ignore everything. There's a real personal relationship there.
So you've alluded to the fact that it's not like you become a Christian and your whole life gets fixed. And you've agreed to share a little bit about what that is, because I think it's really helpful for people to see. Life hasn't always been easy. It's been amazing to watch you kind of grow and change and mature over the last however many years that we've known you. But there have been some ups and downs, haven't there? So what are some of the struggles that you've had since kind of deciding to follow Jesus?
What aren't the struggles that I've had? Yeah, I think that was the false kind of belief I was living under for a while, was that I was going to follow God and everything was going to be perfect and great. So yeah, there's been so much. I think the biggest one is probably mental health. Since before being a Christian, I struggled with depression and a bit of anxiety as well. And I think there was that kind of thought of, so God is this amazing guy that can fix everything. Great, I'm not going to be depressed anymore. And actually, I've had my worst periods of depression whilst I've been a Christian. And just the general idea that my life was going to turn out the way I wanted it to. And some things have, but most things haven't. And I think if I told my 16-year-old self that my life was not going to be exactly as she had planned out, she would have been pretty angry about it. But yeah, I think I just think being a Christian doesn't make your life easier, and in fact sometimes makes it more difficult in some ways. But you just have this sense that actually you're living for more than this life, and so even if my plans don't work out, God's plans are so much better for me, even when I can't see them, even when they don't make a lot of sense to me. He can see far more than I can. But yeah, knowing God doesn't take away the difficult parts of life.
And you've kind of touched on it a bit there, I guess, but when things are really hard, how does following Jesus make a difference? In an ideal world, how does it make a difference?
Yes, in an ideal world, I think my answer to that question is, when things are really tough, you've got someone you can talk to, or you have this overall knowledge that there's a plan for you, and so you don't have to worry about anything, and you kind of and that's not reality. And I think we all know that to some degree, that when we are in those really dark places, or we're struggling, or something goes wrong in our family or whatever, often the first thing we do is not turn around and pray. Often the first thing we do is cry and worry and talk about it with people, and we just get completely frantic in our heads about what we're going to do and what's gone wrong. And there's nothing wrong with feeling those emotions, but it's that background knowledge, whether it takes a day for you to realize or a year for you to realize that God is there, that he is with you, and that he hates that too. He hates that depression that you're going through, and he hates that sin that you're wrapped up in, and he hates that, whatever it is that's destroyed your friendship group or your family or whatever. He hates those things, and that's really comforting. I think that we have a God who's not smiting us and making bad things happen to us. He actually has a good plan for us, but the world isn't perfect. But I think I would love to be able to say, when things go wrong, I turn to my Bible and I sit down and I pray, but that's not always true.
And of course, there are times where we've seen you do that and it's been amazing, but the reality is we don't always do that, do we? Like, as you said, our first instinct isn't always to pray. Like, that's just life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we look inwards and we moan and we get angry at God. But actually that can be quite helpful as well, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think some of my best times of prayer have been when I've driven home from an event where something has happened that I'm really angry about, or I've gone out for a walk and just shouted at God. And maybe that's not something I should be promoting, but I really think you can. And I remember seeing a quote from a Christian author once that basically just said, you can get angry at God, he can take it. He can, he can take you shouting at him and getting upset with him and just saying, why is this happening and where are you? Because he's bigger than that. And actually, I think what he really desires is for us to actually have that conversation with him. Because I so easily, especially when I'm kind of spiraling into depression, I so easily am like, God just doesn't care. There's no point talking to him. And actually, in those moments where I do go to him, even if I'm saying, your plan is ridiculous and I don't like you at all, I'm talking to him and I'm having a conversation with him. And that's what he wants, I think.
And it's in those moments that sometimes he then just goes, I hear you, but you're kind of missing the bigger picture here. Or even when he just reminds you of something and goes, yeah, I hear you, it's really hard, but I love you. And sometimes those can be the most powerful encounters with him, can't they? Where it's just quiet and maybe we're not quiet, but he just patiently, quietly just talking to us or responding.
Yeah, and I think also, so when I first became a Christian, I really didn't read the Bible very much at all. I knew it was important, but I just couldn't get into it. And that's a whole other story. But there were times when I would read through, I'd be studying through a book or even just in a lesson or something about a Bible story, a talk about a Bible story, and I would just feel like I'm in good company here. There are so many like there's pretty much whatever you're going through, there's a story in the Bible or either something Jesus has gone through or someone from the Old Testament has gone through. So just reading through the story of Joseph for a study time I was doing was just like, it was absolutely mind-blowing that he had this life where basically everything he probably planned for his life hadn't gone right, and at every single step it probably felt like God is so far away, and yet he still trusted him, and for Joseph that ended up being, he ended up in a position of complete power and authority, and that was amazing. But even if it doesn't, he trusted that God was going to be there. And so I think whether in prayer you kind of feel God's presence or hear him speak to you, or through the Bible you just feel like you're in really good company, that's been encouraging to me, that Christians for centuries, since the beginning of time, have not had it easy, and they've still trusted him. And
so if you're wanting to speak to folk who maybe are struggling with their mental health, I know so many people are in this season at the moment, and are just going, well, how do I push through this? What does it look like to start a relationship with Jesus, or to try and engage him or reach out to him? What would you want to say to those folk?
I suppose it depends where you are on your walk with God. It's a very Christian term, isn't it? But if you don't know him at all, it's going to be very different from if you know him and you just can't feel him there. But I think one of the massive things that he taught me in the last couple of years is to live in that emotion. So for me, I'd been really, really hurt by people that I had trusted. And I was so angry about it that I was just blocking it out. And I was like, well, I've got to look to God and I've got to talk to him about it. And that's the good Christian thing to do. And I think through prayer, I just really felt him just saying to me, just live in that heartbreak and that hurt, because I'm here. And not forever. So whether it's the depression or, someone really hurting you, whatever, you don't want to live in that emotion forever. But it's okay to live in it for a while. It's okay to really feel it, because Jesus knows that. He knows that pain and that suffering. And so I don't think he wants us to just block it all out. And I think that was a massive learning curve for me, that it is okay to just live in that emotion and talk to God about it, rather than trying to be happy and peppy and all of those kinds of things. It's okay to just say, this is really hard, and I'm really suffering in this.
Izzie, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and open with us. Really, really appreciate it. We've got a whole load more videos on our YouTube channel for you to check out if you're watching at home. Join us at 10:30 every Sunday on YouTube and Facebook as well. But apart from that, Izzie, just want to say thank you and say bye to folk, and then we'll sign off.
See ya.